Hey guys, how's it going? So as you know, Persona 6 was just announced at the Xbox Direct presentation, whatever you call it. And I think we all kind of knew it was coming. There were some images leaking around the internet, on Twitter, and they were kind of impossible to avoid. So I think we knew it was only a matter of time before something was announced. And so here we are. We were living in a post-Persona 6 announcement world, and honestly, I'm personally stoked. I can't wait to see more about this game. Now, I know it was kind of a nothing burger of a teaser, but I found what they showed to be really intriguing, actually. You see, Persona 5 is probably one of my favorite games of all time. These games are very near and dear to my heart, and so I was curious, where do you go from here? Now, P5R isn't a perfect game by any means. It's got some narrative flaws, the gameplay's a little too easy, but I love this game to death. It was a huge leap forward from the previous game, and I just found myself curious, how do you innovate like that going from 5 into 6? Where do you take it from here? And before the game got announced, I had some of my friends asking me, what do you want this game to be? What are you looking for out of this game? And I would just tell them, honestly, I just want to be surprised. I want it to be pretty distinct. I want it to be pretty thematically different from the previous game, because something that 3, 4, and 5 do is they constantly build upon each other. You see a lot of DNA from 3 going to 4, a lot of DNA from 4 going to 5, and for going into 6, I guess honestly I was a little worried. I was worried that they would just try to capture the same lightning in a bottle that Persona 5 was, and I think that would be a big mistake. But when this trailer came out, which honestly really isn't much of anything, it's more of like a vibes and atmosphere trailer than anything, similar to that Persona 5 chair trailer that came out a few years before they officially showed it off. But it seems like they're going in a very different direction than a lot of people expected. A lot more horror-esque. And that idea of a more horror-like Persona game, I didn't even know I wanted that. But now that it's been manifested in the world, I think it's perfect. I think there's such an interesting idea there. There's so many interesting possibilities there. I was shocked watching it. I remember seeing it live and that Atlas logo came up and I'm thinking okay, this has to be Persona 6, right? And so then we start seeing all these graves and this really dark, spooky atmosphere. And I'm is this maybe SMT? Is this an SMT 6 maybe? Is that what we're doing? And then you go and you pan up and you see this gloomy ass green gothic sky. And I'm just okay, there's green there. So is it Persona 6? That would be really weird. And then yeah, bam, logo, Persona 6. I'm holy shit, this isn't at all what I thought it was gonna be. I was expecting kind of this brighter, more colorful kind of teaser, I don't know what I was expecting, but I definitely wasn't expecting this. And that's so cool, that's what I want. And this is the opportunity to try something really different, worst case scenario, if this bombs, no one likes it, they can just make another Persona 5 game. So they have the cushion if they need it, but man, I just want them to go balls to the wall, really embrace the idea of a horror Persona game. Now, when you think of horror, the first thing you think of is probably jump scares. And yes, I want to be jump scared in my fucking Persona game. I want to be able to go through a dungeon and then just bam, jump scare. Skeleton comes out of the floor, ghost descends from the ceiling, just something weird and something nuts, and just incorporate more of that kind of thing into it. Now that I think about it, I can almost see, since you're doing this horror thing anyway, and we saw these gravestones, so what if all these dungeons were underground and you had to descend into these dungeons? I could see something like that. Now, while jump scares can definitely be a cool and powerful part of the game, true horror comes from the absence of power. That's why I'd really love for them to mess around with. Something that would be really sick is okay, there's this idea. There's these two halves of a Persona game, right? You have the social life aspect and you have the dungeon crawling aspect, right? And generally, as long as you're in the social life aspect, you don't really have to worry about things like combat. You're just kind of hanging out with people, trying to get your social links up. But I would love it if you're going through a spooky part of the game, a spooky dungeon, right? Fighting ghosts and zombies or whatever, and you get through the dungeon and you kind of forget about it, right? And a few days later, you're just hanging out in class. And all of a sudden, ghosts just start appearing and shit. Maybe you have to go underground to get to this metaverse area to summon your persona, right? And so a ghost shows up in your school. And all of a sudden, you just have to start running. You run to the basement, get your persona, you start fighting back, but as long as you're above ground, you're a sitting duck, you can't do anything. God, that would be so cool. So you might just be going about your business and your social life aspect and just get jump scared in a fucking hallway. You have to start running, play with that idea. You could just interrupt the social link, carry that spooky atmosphere outside of the dungeon crawling even, and bring it into that other half of the game. So you never feel quite 100% safe. Just create this sense of uneasiness, I really want this game to really fuck with the player. I think that'd be so fun. Or maybe you've cleared a dungeon, or at least you think you've cleared it, right? You finish a chapter, you beat the big bad, and then the next couple of days play out, right? But everything's just a little bit off and things just get progressively more unsettling. And then there's this reveal of like, no, you actually didn't clear the dungeon. You're in a weird dreamscape and you gotta fight your way out. And then you wake up and you're back in that dungeon and no time has passed. You gotta like close out that storyline and you're stuck in like this like loop. And oh, that'd be so cool. What if you have these segments where maybe you need to get to an area, like for example, like let's take the school, right? Like there's this dungeon that's the school and it's a time where everyone's gone. It's like, hey, you need to get to a specific area so that way you can enter the metaverse, right? Like kind of like in Persona 5, it's like if you want to enter Monarame's palace, you have to go to like his house, or you want to enter Shido's palace, you have to go to like the state building or whatever, right? Well, maybe in this game, it's like, hey, you need to get to like, for example, the school dungeon. It's like the portal to like the metaverse is in the basement of this school. But the way this game works is like the metaverse like fucks with things in the real world. So it's like, hey, the protagonist, we need to sneak into that basement to enter the metaverse. And there's gonna be like ghosts and shit around on your way there. And they're kind of like haunting the school right now. And we can't fight them because we don't have our powers. But unlike in Persona 5 where you're like, you know, sneaking into a palace in the metaverse, in this game, it's like, no, you're sneaking to that portal. But there's things outside of it that are trying to get to you and you can't do anything about them until you get into that metaverse portal and get your powers. So you do this Metal Gear Solid ass mission. Sneak through the ghosts, get in the basement, and the whole time you're like scared shitless, right? But you finally get into the metaverse and you unlock your persona. And now all of a sudden, you can fight your way back up and you can get up and fight the boss. So it creates this dynamic of like, oh, going in and getting to that portal, you're so damn scared. Like, but once you get to the basement, you're like, oh, now I can take these guys down. Now I can fight back. And it creates this cool dichotomy. Like that would be so sick. And you can really play with this concept too. Like you could even do something where it's like, hey, maybe if you like get caught sneaking in, you lose like a party member, right? Like maybe they get captured and they get taken somewhere, and all of a sudden when you do get your persona at the bottom of the dungeon, you're like, oh, I'm down a couple party members. My party is limited and now I have to go through and find them again in the dungeon if I want to use them for like this part of the game. Just this idea of like mixing these horror elements with like this typical formula, it just, there's so much potential there. There's so many ideas of like how can you combine like the elements of a horror game with this kind of thing, and that's what I find the most interesting. If we had like a big horror turn-based JRPG, I'm sure we have, right? But this would be so interesting. And again, above all, it would be so risky because it's so different than what people would be expecting out of this series. And I really want them to take a risk. I want them to try new things because like Persona 3, Persona 4, Persona 5, you see them iterate and you see them develop ideas, and it's really, really cool to see like these ideas get ironed out and improved on over time. But 6, you have the opportunity to really twist things. And not in the sense of like, oh, I know there are people out there who are like, oh, I want the cast to be in college. I want the cast to all be adults, like blah, 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 blah. And I don't really give a shit about that. I want them to twist in the terms of like really fucking with what you're familiar with from a gameplay perspective. So I really like this idea of like maybe you're having a day where you're not doing a dungeon, but then like shit just happens. All of a sudden you're like, oh fuck, I thought I was just doing a social link, but no, now I'm in a mini dungeon. I thought I was just gonna hang out with tsundere number 3 from my class, but now I have to protect this girl and get her through this dungeon. That would be so cool. Like just at any moment, you can just cross over like this horror aspect into like the day-to-day part too, not just in the dungeon crawling. And I think that's like a really cool way this game could distinguish itself, is like in 3, 4, and 5, for the most part, there's a few like little exceptions, but for the most part, if you're not in a dungeon, you are safe. I think the interesting thing to do here is to remove that feeling of total safety. Maybe one day you're just hanging out with someone in your class, you're on a social link, you don't think much of it, and then shit just happens and bam, you're in a dungeon. You're like, oh shit, I wasn't expecting this, I wasn't prepared for this. And now it's just me and tsundere number 3 from my class, and we're in this dungeon. I have to protect her and get us the fuck out of here before like she dies or whatever. And maybe you can lose them. Maybe there is a mechanic where it's like, if you fail this, like this social link's just locked, like because this character's dead. Like there's so much potential there to do something really interesting and different. Or even just like little moments, like maybe you're just walking home like after class and you just get jumped by a ghost, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh yeah, run to a portal, get your persona, fight this ghost. Like segments where you're running away from these things. The more horror aspects they're able to incorporate into the gameplay, right? Because you can obviously incorporate horror aspects in the dungeons, but I think carrying that over into the day-to-day and kind of creating this unsettling feeling of not necessarily being safe. Like maybe in the beginning of the game, obviously, like things are a little more safe because, you know, you gotta get people, especially new people, like kind of familiar with that loop. But as the game keeps progressing, you can kind of make it more uncomfortable. You can kind of keep breaking that wall of perceived safety. Those are the things I find really interesting. Like, I'm not really gonna speculate into like what the social links or anything could be, because like there's nothing there, right? Like, again, this is just kind of a vibes trailer. But the idea of what concepts, like from a game design perspective, they can incorporate, like how can we make the player feel fear? If that's the direction they're going, that's the stuff I find so interesting. I don't want it to be a thing where it's just like, oh, the colors are kind of muted and the sky is green and shitty. I want to be scared in this game. I want to have segments of this game where I am scared to progress. Like, that would be so wild to be playing a Persona game and be like, I am afraid of like the next day in this game. Like, that would be so cool. What creates a sense of like horror in video games is a sense of powerlessness, right? It's kind of the difference between playing as Grace in Resident Evil versus Leon in Resident Evil. It's like Grace, you're scared because she's like, you feel like you can't do a whole lot, right? But with Leon, you have so much power, right? I know RE9 kind of plays the dichotomy of that. And so to create a sense of horror, you have to create a sense of helplessness. I think this is a really cool way to do it, is having that stuff infiltrate from like the metaverse into the real world, and then it's like all of a sudden you think you're doing one thing and it's like, hey man, I hope you know where this portal is, because you're gonna have to sprint there, because if not, something bad is gonna happen. Like, you're gonna, like, this guy's gonna get you, and that's gonna like do something. Maybe it's the idea of like, hey, you're walking to school one morning, you get attacked. If you lose this fight, you lose that day. Like, so you can't take, you know, a day event or an evening event. And that's such a huge loss in a game like that. Like, your time slots are invaluable. So like, if the idea like these things could like jump you, if you can't beat them, you lose that resource. That is horrifying. And that's kind of what you want to bring into this. Like, I know there would be people who out there who probably don't like it, but I think that's something to like toy with. Like, make the player feel fear, like they have something to lose. I want that sense of horror. I want to be able to like play this game with my friends and get excited because I know they're about to shit their pants at something they weren't expecting to jump out at them. That would be so, there's so much they could do there. So moving on from the trailer and looking at the Microsoft site, because we actually did get a little more info there. There's nothing here particularly new. It's just kind of going over like, you know, oh, you're gonna be able to hang out with people and like all that kind of stuff. But the interesting thing is this line here where they talk about how the game's gonna deal with dark, strange rumors, urban legends, and occult incidents. And that just sounds so fucking cool, man. Like, the idea of going up against an evil cult or like an antagonistic group, like an evil dark Persona cult, that's so fucking cool. Like, that'd be so sick. It'd also be a lot more in line with like the older games and something like SMT3, where the whole incident is because of like this weird occult that's causing some weird shit to happen. And there are people who are saying like, oh, this kind of seems like a return to the forum. Like, maybe we're gonna kind of get the rumor mechanic back from the old games. And I could definitely see that, because it seems like even 5 was starting to pull a bit more from the older games, especially with the demon negotiation or shadow negotiation tactics. I'm sure people who are smarter than me will be doing analysis videos over the next couple days, and who knows, at this rate, more things might actually leak now that it's kind of out there. So I wouldn't be surprised. I really hope it doesn't. But yeah, is there anything else I wanted to say other than just like, wow, this is honestly really cool. Like, I really dug this teaser, and I didn't know I wanted like a Persona horror game. In a way, it almost feels like it's really risky, and you have to go risky. Like, this seems almost like it could be almost alienating, but I think that's really interesting. Like, I kind of want to keep thinking about this. I'm going to keep like visiting this idea. Maybe I'll make a follow-up on this. But in the meantime, I'm genuinely curious. Like, please leave comments. Like, how do you think they can incorporate like horror elements into this game from a game design perspective? Because narratively, it's like you can write a spooky story, right? But how can you take the Persona formula and make it scary? Like, actually like a bit horrifying. I'd love to know what you think, because I'm genuinely curious. It's something I'm gonna be thinking about for a while. I'm sold on this. Like, if this is the direction they're going, I am 100% in. Like, this is probably the game I'm looking forward to the most now. I will be there no matter what. And you know what? At the end of the day, as long as my boy Beelzebub's in the game, then there's no way it can be bad. So it will be fire regardless.